Do you have to eat the entire ass?
Yeah, the whole ass.
Hello and welcome
Oh.
to the Pixel Scandal Nerdcast. I forgot to start the recording.
Are we gonna?
Now
cut
I
that
did.
Out?
Hi.
Well, it's cut out now.
Yeah.
Let's do it again. Hello and welcome to the Pixel Scandal Nerdcast, episode 22. I'm Kurt.
Night, son, whatever. Me. Phoning it in.
And then that's me next, right? That's me, right?
Yeah,
that's you.
that'd be you next.
Yeah, that's your name.
Hi.
Can you tell the folks at home who you are?
I mean, if you go by what these guys say, it's Oreztes, which is never how I pronounced it, but
how are we
it's
supposed
fine.
to say it?
I say Oreztes,
Oh, sorry. Oreztes.
based on a Greek mythological character.
Okay, sure. I'm Gigett. I will also be phoning it in this evening.
You guys are... Come on, y'all.
I have good.
I will not be phoning it in.
Thank you, end of line.
Just kidding. I probably will be.
Consistency, guys. That's what we're looking for here.
These people showed up and gave us their time.
Hey, Kurt.
Well, we were
What do
trying
you
to
mean
shoot
these
for the.
people?
We were trying to name it, ourselves the Underachievers podcast, but it was already taken. So.
Hey, Kurt.
Yeah.
You suck.
Ah.
Hey, so where can people find us?
Oh, hey. If I can tell you more about that. If you'd like to find more about Pixel Scandal, you can go to pixelscandal.com and find out all sorts of fun information about the show. You can also find our back episodes, links to YouTube, this right here, this Twitch live chat. You can find links to our audio feed. So if you want to listen to this podcast as an audio feed, you can do so on like iTunes and Google Play and whatever podcatcher you prefer. And if you'd like to connect with us on social media, you can do that by going to twitter.com/pixelscandal, or you can search for us on Instagram at pixelscandal. You can also find us on Facebook. We have a Facebook fan page, so you can go and like that and follow it or whatever it is that people do with Facebook stuff. And we'll put go live notifications on there. So just get all the Pixel Scandal news you could want. And if you'd like to contact the show, you can do so by emailing pixelscandal@gmail.com.
You can also find us on Final Fantasy XIV Gilgamesh server, Pixel Scandal Free Company.
We do have a guild or a free company on there, so if
There
you
you
were
go.
playing that game, you could come and join.
Yeah. And
So
you should totally play it because it's awesome.
tonight's spotlight topic will be how to make RPG games scary and hopefully not campy,
Spoopy.
and what it takes to make a spoopy game.
Well, of course, this is starting off our spoopy month of October.
Yes.
So I believe all of our topics and games this month will be
welcome
focused
to
on the
October,
spoopy.
friends.
Very excited.
There we
I
go.
love Halloween.
There we go. I am
As
now.
Gidge gets spoopy.
I wasn't
now
aware we were
Octobered out.
using props. I don't
if
have
we-
anything ready.
Yeah,
Hat.
if we had some advanced warning.
Yeah, but
I
if
would
I warned
have-
you guys, then I wouldn't be the cool one wearing a hat.
This
right
isn't
now.
a real beard. I'm pretending like I'm a drug cartel.
You're gonna rip it off at the
Like
beginning of
the whole
November.
cartel, like the entire cartel.
They're all inside the beard.
I'm a leader of a drug cartel.
Yeah.
So end of line. Do we have any announcements for our wonderful audience?
I mean, I guess. Oh, yes, we do.
I mean, if you want to tell
tomorrow-
people the announcements, I mean, I'm glad you
Oh,
know
yeah.
them, but
Y'all
can
really
we
are
tell
phoning
everyone
it in
else
tonight, aren't
what
you?
the announcements are?
To celebrate our first game night of October, we're going to be playing Dead by Daylight tomorrow at 4 p.m.
Yay.
We'll be playing hopefully some Kill Your Friends. Our next actual play is going to be October 13th. It'll be at 9 a.m.
Pacific Standard Time.
Gidget will be running a one-shot for us while Kurt is away at his convention.
Yeah.
Which and then also we have our next Dungeon World game on November 10th. That is also at 9 a.m. and we will be returning to Dungeon World. So check us out for that. So November 10th, 9 a.m., October 13th, also 9 a.m., and tomorrow at 4 p.m.
Yay.
Yeah.
Cool.
All in
Stuff.
Pacific Standard Time.
Yeah.
And also, thank you, Oreztes, for subscribing and supporting your own stream that you're on.
I'm gonna need that. I'm gonna need that 250
Yay.
back, y'all.
Yay!
Tree fitting.
Tree fitting.
You know what the best part about that was though? After I subscribed, it gave me the option to ban myself.
Please take advantage.
Yeah, yeah, that's called nepotism. What's everybody excited about? Kurt?
I am excited about Big Bad Con, which is next friggin' weekend, y'all. I'm jumping on the Amtrak at Thursday and going straight up there and gonna game all friggin' weekend, and then come back Sunday. I'm super stoked. I was
Totally
actually
not hungover.
You know what's funny? I was at our local gaming store, our friendly local gaming store today, and
The Crazy Squirrel.
yeah, and I found out that they have an indie games meetup every second Saturday of the month, which is the same Saturday that we have our actual place.
But theirs is in the afternoon.
Yeah,
That's fine.
but they're rescheduling it this month because all of them are going to Big Bad Con. all of the
Wow.
indie RPG guys are going to guys and gals, and
Is there
People
actually
in
an
towns.
indie community, an indie gaming community here?
Apparently.
there's a meetup. I don't know who goes, so I'm excited to go
It's
check
just
it out.
you. It's
The
just you in a
owner-
room.
The owner of Crazy Squirrel said their indie meetup day has usually somewhere between 5 to 20 people, depending on the games that are being run and the month and
Yeah.
that kind of
Apparently
thing.
he's
So-
going to be running a Scum and Villainy game, but I assume the players for that are already set. So I'll have to find out how I get into that sort of situation.
Yeah, you must be super stoked to find a like-minded community who's just so much in love with the BBC.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the Big Bad Con.
Yeah.
Yeah.
the big bad con.
Go
Cool.
with that.
Well, something I'm super excited about is happening
Raspberries.
tomorrow, which is the return of Doctor Who with the new 13th Doctor.
Shit.
Is he finally an owl?
No, he is finally a she. The Doctor
Is she an owl?
She is not. She is not an owl or a ginger. But
Well,
yeah,
then I am just not interested.
tomorrow night is the return of Doctor Who on the BBC. I'm very, very excited. I am.
Let me know when they have a ginger owl as the doctor, and then I will.
It's
I will
David-
be there.
It's David Tennant after a sex change. That's the secret, though.
It's the only way they let him back on the show.
In fiction, you're not 100% wrong.
Yeah, I know. I mean, regenerating to a female
I don't.
from the same
Yeah.
cells. Yeah, I mean,
So
technically,
tricky.
yeah.
I saw the trailer. It actually looks really good. I'm
It
excited.
does. It looks. It
I
looks
didn't
really
watch
good.
the last. I haven't watched the last season.
You don't need to.
But I think I'm gonna jump on this one.
Yeah, you
I
don't
wasn't a huge fan of Capaldi.
I was
Yeah.
not a huge fan of Capaldi, but there were specific episodes that were really good. Like the Christmas episode, which I have been putting off watching, that we literally just watched this last week so that I was up to date on the regeneration, was actually really solid. And I feel like it was one of the best episodes I've seen in a couple of years. So I'm very excited for the new season.
Right on.
Something else I'm excited about that I actually just saw the news drop on this about an hour ago. Skybound has taken ownership of Telltale's The Walking Dead game and will finish out the last series through the end of Kirkman's storyboarding of that game. So
Oh.
they're actually going to complete the Walking Dead Telltale game through
I'll be
Skybound.
honest. I'm surprised that they're going piecemeal with that, and it wasn't just going to be a sell the whole thing.
Yeah, me
Yeah.
too. We talked about
I-
that.
I figured they're gonna see how they handle this, and then if this works out, they'll probably go into talks to negotiate the other IPs.
Yeah, probably.
Is
Maybe.
my guess.
Yeah.
Well, and it might be. Part of the problem was they just took on too many IPs, so
Right.
it might be smart not to take on the whole thing.
Yeah, but you'd be
For one
stupid
studio.
not to immediately start putting bids in for the Stranger Things one,
Yeah.
Yeah.
because that's going to.
Well,
blow
and
up.
it may be that, like they said, the storyboard for this was already done, so maybe
Right,
a lot of work was already done, and it was just a matter of buying it, polishing it off, and putting it out, which is a lot less commitment than developing something from scratch, which is where Stranger Things might be sitting at this point.
But
so.
the Stranger Things was part of some license deal with Netflix to be actually released through Netflix.
Mm.
So you and I, we know The Walking Dead. We know the game because we're on Steam. We see it. We're all the
Right.
nerd community. The Stranger Things game had the opportunity for my mom to find it.
Right. That's true. Makes it more accessible.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah, we all knew someone was going to pick up.
Right. I mean, we had kind of talked about that, I think, last week or the week before. And when I saw that right before the show, I was like, oh, I got to toss this in the notes so we can mention it.
Yeah, I do hope they're picking up some of the bodies, though, like some of the designers, developers.
Yeah.
Because it definitely sucks for them just getting.
They had a floating hashtag going around for
Yeah.
people to use to try and look people to snag their developers.
Compared to some of the other similar issues in the past, the industry as a whole has really stepped up and tried to find them homes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Which is good. And sad news, the actor who played Herschel on The Walking Dead just passed away. I just saw that announcement just like 10 minutes ago. So.
And he was coming back for the next season.
Really?
Yeah. He I forget the guy's name from the first season that was best friends with the shaved head guy, the guy that plays Punisher.
Shane?
Yeah, Shane was coming back for a cameo. Herschel was coming back for a cameo.
Yeah, I think they were doing a lot of like flashback stuff.
Yeah.
Because this is going to be, what's his name? The guy who plays Rick Grimes.
Rick Grimes.
This is his last season, which actually also starts tomorrow. The Walking Dead comes back tomorrow.
That might actually give me an excuse to go back and kind of check it out.
Yeah, this is his
finish
last
it off
season.
if they're going to put a quote unquote pin in it, as it were. So
Right. I mean, the writers were saying they've got like 10 years of story that they could keep going with
Not
it.
interested.
Most of the fans are like, don't do that. Like,
Yeah.
if Rick's leaving this season, just, whatever.
Shut it
But yeah, that's coming back tomorrow too, and they're supposed to have people coming back. So that's kind of interesting how that all goes. That all shakes down. So anyway, moving along with our excitement here.
Yeah.
Last but not least, Kurt's got Gauntlet Con coming up in 2 weeks.
Yeah, I do.
And still has slots open in his
In my Sunday game.
in your Sunday game.
Yeah, so I have a Sunday game of Nuclear Night School, which is my Savage World setting of 1980s nostalgia plus magic. It should be a good time. It's going to be very 1980s college movie plus some weird magic shit happening. So if you're going to Gauntlet Con or it's an online convention, so if you're doing Gauntlet Con, go and check that out. If you're in the Gauntlet, you have it for free, so come and say hi. Also, I snuck in a couple things that I'm excited about here. There's 2 Kickstarters that I backed recently.
I know what FH&B's.
Yeah, it's the Forrest Hammond Picnic.
Forrest Hammond Picnic.
It is on. It's got 37 hours to go. It funded. They're just looking at what stretch goals we're gonna get. So we're in those last days. Definitely, if you like Over the Garden Wall or that type of those type of cute forest stories, plus some like weird human just oddity type stuff, go and check it out. It's using the Shadow of the Demon Lord system, which has some
okay, I'm interested now.
Yeah, which has some super cool. It's a D&D Heartbreaker, so if you're into those, like it's all these things, and it takes the really cool system from Shadow of the Demon Lord and bakes it into a setting that I can get behind, because Shadow of the Demon Lord's setting is pretty graphic. So I'm super excited about it, and that's gonna close in 37 hours from 9 p.m. or from 8 p.m. on October 6th. So if you're listening to this in the future. The other thing that I backed recently is Codex RPG Zine. So if you're familiar with the Gauntlet, they put out a zine of indie RPG stuff every month, which is like $4. You can get the PDF, but they're gonna do a hardback of all of the first 12 of them, I believe it is. So it's the Volume 1 hardback. And they're only printing for the Kickstarter. So if this is something you're interested in, like if you want to get all this, and there's some really neat games in there. So if you want to get on that, go look up that Kickstarter, Codex RPG Zine Volume 1 hardcover. There's some really cool stuff buried in there, and it's not going to be easy to get after the Kickstarter closes.
Cool. All right. So let's talk about what we've been playing recently, guys. I think first up for the week was last Sunday. Kurt and I played in the Great American Novel RPG, written and run by Christopher Gray. And that was run on his channel. And you kind of create the world as you're making your characters. So we ended up in like a 1940s LA, Las Vegas noir type of game. I'm playing kind of like a heiress who doesn't have any money because dad's money's in probate. And Kurt's playing kind of the hard-boiled detective type guy.
Yeah.
On the police force, the corrupt police force.
Yeah, I'm the righteous guy on the corrupt police force trying to stave off the corruption.
There's a land deal, and a bunch of money's gone missing, and my dad, who's supposed to be dead, is like involved in it somehow, and yeah, so it's really interesting. We're going to be playing that again because we only got through about half of the story in November, so we'll definitely link to that and share it and stuff, so you guys can go check out that game we played and pick up the second half in November when we play the other half of that. It was a really fun game. It was us and 2 other players. So yeah, if you want to see that, we'll definitely put some links in so you guys can go check that out.
Yeah, I'll link to it. It was a good game, and we're gonna have the follow up coming up in a month or so.
Yeah, and then you guys have been playing Final Fantasy. How's that been going?
Good.
I love it. It's my favorite MMO, I think. So I'm having a great time sitting at home all day playing, doing things.
Yeah. Sweet. I heard through it's kind of a grumpy nap interrupted Kurt that you guys got your guild up and going today.
Well, we were previously members of another guild, and then it imploded violently.
Yeah, that was great.
And so we decided to maybe, it was time to set out on our own and try to find out how we should make one in that game and go from that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. It was one of those
very interesting.
Ill-fated internet love stories.
Internet love tragedies.
Yeah. Man falls in love with cat girl. Things never work out well.
And then, of course, on top of that, End of Line hasn't eaten a guild in many, many months.
That is
It's
true.
been a while
That is
since we
true.
played an MMO.
I was
fasting.
famished.
That guild was delicious.
It was a big guild. It was somewhere like
really
500 or 600 members.
Oh
Wow.
my gosh.
Yeah, it was one of those just, hey, we /invite anyone who walks through town kind of guild.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was one of the ones where the guild master flipped out and he was like, "Hey, everybody, can you please leave my guild?" And he started booting people. And I was like, "No, I'm just gonna hang out and see what happens." And I had to go through 3 dungeons before he got to my name. Yes, I'm out.
Yeah, there was a line. I came back and there was a
Yeah.
line of hundreds of names. I was like, did he just not kick me? Oh, there I go.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, if you recently got kicked from your Final Fantasy guild and you need to figure out how to join a new guild, we have a show about that. You can check our backlog.
Yeah, there you go. And we all got together. God, was that only last night? We got
it was last
together
night.
and played our home game. God, it's been a long 24 hours. We got together and played What's in the Box, which is our home game, that long-standing home game. We were
Our first time since July.
Yeah.
time since July because we've been so busy,
It's
which
been a
is
big gap.
really great to get to sit around a table and play those characters again. But we've been kind of going through this dungeon for a while, trying to get to the source of this necromancy magic. Because if we solve this problem, then we get the thing we need to solve a different problem. But we had to solve these people's problem to get the thing we need. So we're
It's like the 5th key of Ventusler or whatever.
yes. So we're finally at the end of this, dealing with like the necromancer, and the room was full of zombies, and we almost killed Luda's life. She went down hard. Yeah, it was really, Kurt felt bad because it ended up being a lot of combat, and I think that's not what he was expecting from that game.
I made some mistakes.
But I mean, from the amount of time I got to actually sit at the table, I had a very good time last night getting to play Isabel, and I was very, very happy that Oreztes, how do you say your name?
That's
Apparently,
fine.
we've been saying
Yeah, we're
it
gonna
wrong
question it every
for
time.
It doesn't
10
matter.
years.
It's been 10 years. It's
All right. Anyway, so we he saved my tiger, my dire tiger. So I was very thankful of that because my tiger is my baby and he almost died. So.
Yeah, I set up a room where there was a ritual that had some, like, they had to interact with it to figure out what was going on, and the whole room was filled with piles of bodies, and I was thinking, like, oh yeah, these bodies are gonna slowly get up, little bits at a time, and they're gonna have to deal with that while they try to figure out what's happening with this ritual, and then that did not happen, and I made some I made some assumptions early, and that turned into basically killing every single zombie that I had poured on the table.
Yeah, I mean, it's not your fault that I poured alchemist fire, like threw alchemist fire at a pile of them and like woke up half the room. So, shit happens.
It was interesting. We rolled with it.
Yeah.
It was a long
I think it would
combat.
definitely be a topic for a future episode of how to balance an encounter for your table.
Right.
I mean,
Because it was definitely some lessons learned. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
yeah. I feel like you definitely got like MVP last night though with your shield of killing zombies. That was really fun. Apparently, I'm gonna have to make some rolls because I used my little time turner thing quite a bit, and for like 10 rounds, and I might age a whole bunch if I fail those. So let's see what happens. We'll see the next time we play how that all works itself out, because I may have gone forward in time too many times with my.
That's
time
probably
turner.
fine. That's probably fine.
It's probably fine.
I mean, I'm already the oldest person in the party, being like 35, I think. I think that's how old my character is.
Jeez, Grandma.
I know, but if I fail 10 rolls, I could be the really oldest person in the party. Not that 45 is old, but I feel like in a medieval game or a D&D game that 45 can, that is old. So.
Well, if you remember the old 2nd edition haste spell from D&D, that aged you 1 year every single time it was cast.
Yep.
Wow.
And on top of that, and this is a rule that nobody really paid attention to, you actually had to make a save or die every time you were magically aged.
Oh my god.
So anytime someone casted haste on you,
you could just
staple
die.
combat spell, you could just die.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Oh my gosh,
That's
we
what you
went
want.
to the garage sale thing at Crazy Squirrel today, and somebody was selling like all the old D&D books,
Yeah,
like the
Advanced
original
Dungeons
book,
and Dragons Player's Handbook.
all the 2nd edition books. There were a bunch of 4th edition books there. It was pretty crazy. There was no 3.5 books, but there was a ton of 2nd edition.
They had a bunch of Cyberpunk 2020 books, and I almost bought some, and then I posted it in one of the Slacks that I'm in, because I'm playing in a Cyberpunk 2020 game, but in like a hippie game system. We're just using the old mods, and so I shared the picture, and the GM was like, "Oh yeah, no, those are still in print. They're like cheaper. You don't need to." It's like, oh, okay. Apparently, Cyberpunk 2020 is still in print. You can go buy it from their website.
Yeah, Batman over here was saying that he started with 2nd edition. It was really clunky. I've actually never played 2nd edition. I've played 4th and 3.5 and like.
Do you like math?
Like base.
You're gonna get math.
Do you like math?
I don't enjoy math in my games. I mean, come on. Last night I was rolling dice and just going 10, 12, 6 plus 14, and then look at you guys and go, math. Because I wasn't cognitively able to do math
Yeah.
last night.
The
So.
numbers in our Savage Worlds game are getting a little out of hand.
You know,
Well,
I don't.
180 XP will do that to you.
Yeah.
I'm at
Savage
100
World falls apart.
I'm
at
at
about
179. Thank
Yeah.
you very much.
Mm.
Anyway, so Kurt, you played something called Veil 2020.
That's that Cyberpunk game I was talking about. We're doing the Euro Tour adventure, which the GM Fraser Simmons has pared down to 4 sessions. So he's basically just dug out the gist, and it's funny because every time we start one of these, he's like, "All right, so here's all the problematic content I cut. This game had no less than 2 honeypots." Like, so he's like talking about all the stuff that he had to cut because it's just like super sexist or just bizarre and doesn't make sense anymore.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a fun game. I'm playing Tex, the cowboy cyberpunk guy, who's got my drone rodeo.
Is that your Thursday night game?
Yeah, that's the Thursday night game I'm
Nice.
playing.
Nice.
Well, speaking of math in games and how you don't like it, there's a raid in Final Fantasy XIV where one of the bosses, one of the phases is he cuts everybody's hit points down to a single digit, and then there's 4 areas on the floor. There's a 1, a 2, a 3, and a 4, and then he starts making you do math. He's like, "All right, divisible by 8," and you have to step on a number that you add to your hit points. And then if it's right, he's like, "Good job, you get plus damage now." And he
Oh
does
my
that like 3 or 4 times. So
It's
just
like
what
those.
the hell is
It's like those
happening
old
right now?
games they make little kids play,
Math
like,
blasters.
Math
Yeah,
Blasters
yeah.
or something, right?
For
Yeah.
Final Fantasy.
Edutainment.
It's great.
Edutainment.
It's a lot
Edutainment,
of fun.
guys.
It's fun.
Yeah.
It's a fun fight. Fun
It's called
fight.
gamification, y'all. Well, cool. Does anybody have anything they've been playing or they're excited about before we move into our spotlight topic?
No,
Awesome.
I think
So,
I don't
Way to
know
run
what
it.
I'm doing.
Hurt those
I don't know what I'm
cats.
doing from one day to the next. I don't know what's coming out.
yeah. So, our topic tonight is how to make RPG games scary and not campy. We all have different opinions on whether or not this is even possible
Yeah.
to do. So
well, I think the first thing to say is in some groups it isn't flat out.
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. I think some groups just can't be serial enough. Sure.
Cereal.
Cereal.
Super
Do
cereal.
you want to try a
cereal.
third time?
Super cereal.
super cereal,
Nope, we're
guys.
sticking with cereal.
We're sticking with cereal, guys.
All right.
I happen to.
I feel like I need a disclaimer that I've only had about like 4.5 hours of sleep. So words are hard.
I have run some scary or some very tense games, but I think what we're gonna find. I don't know. We'll talk about whether or not we think it's possible at the end of this.
The first thing we have here is the investment in the story and being really actually invested in the story. And I think that comes down to discussing as a group that this is going to be scary and we want it to be scary. Because if you don't have investment from your players, then it becomes campy very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
It becomes, what's that movie? Tucker and
Tucker
Dale.
and Dale versus Evil.
That's
Right?
not campy. That's gold.
That it is
Yeah.
gold, but I mean, you're running around and you're like scary, and then like jokes, right? And so that's where I think RPG games can kind of stumble. Is if you don't have that investment, then you stumble into the jokes pretty quickly.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, I think the first step to that is having a discussion about what you want the tone of the game to be, making sure that everyone is on board with the type of story that you want to do, and that everyone is sort of committed to, hey, we're not going to have out of character jokes because this is a horror game. And then being able to, throughout the course of the game, jump back in and say, hey, we had this discussion at the beginning of the game. I think that joke or I think this action is off tone. Let's bring it back in. And not in like a bad player stop ruining my game way, but like we had to talk about the kind of conversation we're going to have. Let's stay on topic, like that sort of thing.
Right. Or if campy is what you're shooting for, then make sure you have that discussion, because sometimes campy, scary stories are fun, but
steer into it.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
I think at a table, horror games automatically go towards campy.
Yeah,
I don't think you need to steer that. You'd have to steer away from it if you don't want that.
Right.
But I think it's the default setting. Just because people are at a table, want to be a little goofy and they're have fun.
Well, I also think it depends on who you're playing with, because like it would be a lot easier if you're with people that you're comfortable with, because just being in a horror setting, in a horror like environment, if you're taking that seriously, that kind of puts you like in a position of like helplessness, I think. And if you're playing with people that you're not super comfortable and familiar with, like at a like a con, I don't think a horror game, like a legit horror, would be possible at a con.
I
think
played,
that would be really, really hard.
Other than 10 Candles with tomes.
Yeah, well,
I have seen it happen, so it's it's possible, but it is less likely, and it definitely depends on who sits down at the table.
Yeah, because for me, it would be super hard to be that invested with people that I'm not comfortable with and that I don't already know and stuff.
I could see that.
Yeah, but 10 Candles though, when we did 10 Candles, that was the closest that I've ever been to like being like legit scared in a game.
We even had a jump scare.
Yeah, I mean,
that was planned mouse. Yeah, I mean, man, Kurt, that was great.
So much investment with the raining rat babies. That was great.
Yeah, totally. But yeah, I mean, I think definitely setting your tone at the very beginning really helps keep you where you want the game to be. And then, like End of Line said, like refreshing that, or was it Nightson? I don't know. I'm not paying attention. Somebody said, keep refreshing that topic. Like if you start to slide into campiness, make sure that you say, you bring it back in or kind of reset the tone if it needs to be. Course correct. There you go. That's the word.
Yeah. So I think the first step. So once you've had your discussion of tone, like, is this a campy game? Is it not? We've decided, no, we want an actual horror game. The first step to building investment, because that was sort of our first bullet point. So something I learned from Tomes when I played 10 Candles, and something I used in our 10 Candles game, is to ease into the game. He spent, like, I don't think we started playing for maybe an hour, because he just sat down at the table, he had everyone introduce themselves, he let some small talk happen, he talked a little bit about the game, like what the game was going to be like, then we did some more small talk, then he like left for a little bit and let us like get, and let us get kind of like uncomfortable and chat with each other. And then he came back and then talked a little bit more about the game. And to the point where by the time we were going to start and we were going to light those candles, everyone was like, come on, where's my game? Like, he basically let us want the game to happen. Where I remember like early games when I tried to run a horror game when I was like a year or two into gaming, you try to force it. You're like, all right, everybody, let's just settle down. Let's get going on this.
Trying to control too much.
Yeah,
of it.
and
right.
like that puts the players on the defensive immediately, versus just sort of take your time. Like if you're gonna do a horror game, don't have a hard out. Like just don't have a hard stop.
Right.
Because you don't want to rush into the opening scenes.
Yeah. Right, exactly. And I mean, Tomes in chat was saying that his first scary game was a D&D game in high school, but the GM, it was all about the way the GM set the tone, the pacing, quiet house, middle of the night, all those environmental factors that kind of led to already that feeling of being creeped out a little bit. Someone else said creeping horror. Yeah, just kind of letting it slowly sink in, the darkness, the quiet, the all the things that you're trying to, all the feelings and things you're trying to elicit in your players.
Yeah, for some reason chat is not loading for me, so
well, that's too bad, because it's very
hi chat.
I think a lot of talking going on in chat today.
Part of the investment, I think, too, is, and I mean, this comes after as long as the table has an understanding of what type of game I think the GM has in scope for their story. And this is, of course, provided the people at the table are even willing and able to be invested in a story like that. It's not for everyone, obviously. And I think you have to kind of understand that, know that horror game is not for everyone. And there's also, of course, different tiers to a horror game. You have the really, the lighthearted, kind of suspenseful thriller kind of horror, and then you have the slasher, bloody, everyone's getting killed kind of horror. And you have to kind of gauge who's at your table, I think, and kind of try and you may have to make changes and adjustments based on that. But I think for me, getting commitment means there has to be something to lose. There has to be something at risk. And then if you're able to kind of set the tone really early about what is at play and what is at risk, the table kind of sets the momentum of the game from there, and you let their paranoia and their fear kind of become the engine for your game, and it kind of plays itself from there, I think, if you're able to make that happen.
I can definitely definitely see like the way you ran your Dread games because it worked. We had things that were scary, things that we didn't want to lose, and that set a tone for us.
Yeah. Well, even in the 10 Candles game, it felt like that. I mean, in our game, and I think we talked about it in our cast, but in our case, we were on a train, right?
Right.
So, like in our case, the train was like a character, and we were isolated. So the isolation was kind of part of it. You only had two ways to go. There was no left and right. There was only front and back. Right. And so it created tension because you never had an escape route. And
I
so
was legitimately
I think little things
terrified.
like that. Little things like that little thing about being on a train and that being isolated and having like really shifts the tone of the game really early. It's like, okay, this is really bad place to be in this situation. And it works well.
But on the same note, you should encourage those kind of things in your environment around you as well.
Right.
Like play in a dark room, with minimum lighting. 10 Candles does that, and it's the best thing about it.
Yeah.
The whole game requires you to play in the dark.
Yeah.
Play it at night in the quiet, go ahead.
Well, and speaking to what Kurt was saying about easing into it, when we knew we were going to play 10 Candles, we're like, oh, it's going to be a scary game. We started walking around, like, turning off the lights in the place, and Kurt was like, take it easy, it's okay. Like, he helped kind of, like, set our tone to kind of chill out and calm down a little bit, too, because we were overly excited about playing. And so, like, he had kind of, like, made us chill out. He's like, everybody get a drink. Hey, where's the light switch for this light? And then we'd all kind of walk around and look for the light switch because we were in unfamiliar territory, and
it was kind of a brain fuck because our eyes kept adjusting to the new light.
Right. I did that on purpose.
And so as it kept getting dark, your eyes would adjust and you just wouldn't think about it. And then I'm telling you, not until like the last 5 candles, you're like, dude, I can't see shit in here. Like, I see nothing. We hear the wind rattling, the wind is blasting outside, rattling the windows. Everyone's just like, okay, this is fucked up.
Yeah.
Someone in chat said, I think a single protagonist helps as well. It gives the players a common connection to horror, and you don't feel the same tension for a different player's character as you do for your own.
Right.
And I definitely have to agree with that. We talk about that about movies quite a bit, where like it's hard to be scared of an idea of something or a group of things, but like one singular bad guy is a lot more scary than this idea that there's a lot of bad guys. And so I think that definitely works in an RPG too, where I mean obviously in 10 Candles it doesn't use that, and it's still terrifying, but I think in most other horror games having like a singular focused thing that you're scared of helps add to the fear.
Something else you can do to build investment is having like relatable NPCs. So making sure that you don't go too far too fast. If you're playing a slasher game or you're playing we're lost in the woods, have the characters find another human or another of something else like them that they can relate to, and then you can set how they should feel through that character's actions, and sort of build in a little bit of that. This is a real person. Like, have them be scared, have them do things erratically, but not like campy, right? Just have them act honest, And
Are you mean to like give the players a sense of like an example, an example of the behavior
like
in the situation?
this is what characters in this world would do to, you know, how they would react to this like stimulus. But of course, I'm not saying you have to throw an NPC in there to like course correct.
No, but it's definitely.
But anytime you have NPCs in there, don't have them be like you know, have it be like a real person that they can relate to. And even if they turn out to be like kind of creepy, have them start off like nobody meets someone new and is super creepy, right? Nobody's trying to be creepy. You may pick up on that if someone is creepy, but like no one's trying to scare you usually, right? Like they're gonna try to relate to you if we meet a new person. And so even if they are a little creepy, like let them figure that out later or as it comes, right? I don't feel like in a horror game you don't have to telegraph as much,
right,
as you do in like a D&D game where, oh, I need to let them know this is a bad guy so they can prep and like be ready to cast spells and stuff.
Right. Roll insight.
Yeah, right?
Yeah. I think the next thing on this list, playing yourself, that we've talked about that in End of Line's Dread game. Playing yourself can be really terrifying because not only are you actually worried about yourself, you're worried about the people around you because you actually know them. Mm-hmm. And so you're actually worried about the other players more so than just like, oh, I'm worried about your made up character and I'm worried about my made up character. It's like, no shit, this is me. I'm worried about me.
And then you happen to find out some very dark things about yourselves and what you would do in a given situation.
Yeah, your limits.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well,
Absolutely.
The funny thing about that whole thing is I don't know if I've ever told you guys this, but I had originally made character sheets for that game. And they were you guys, but you had character sheets, and I was going to have you guys, you were basically going to write, 5 things that you do well and 5 things you do poorly. And that was going to be kind of like the 5 high and the 5 low, and it was going to kind of impact some of your draws and pulls and stuff like that. But then I realized, then I thought about maybe doing characters, which is how everyone else does it, right? Everyone does a character. But it takes time, then people have to spend time to get into that character, and do they understand the character? They got to flesh that out in their minds, and that's fantastic and all, but I was intending to take this game to a con.
Right.
So because of those 2 reasons, I thought, well, what better way to get in the mind of how someone would feel in a situation than saying, how would you feel in that situation? And you can just go. Like, you can just fire right off the bat. Right. But it came with some cons, obviously, we had some in our home game. And there were some cons to that in the con game as well. Not many, but there were a couple. But I think as a whole, it worked.
You didn't have a critic there committing suicide?
Seen it. Yeah, but I've never, I don't know. I've never seen any other game do that. I'm surprised it's not a thing. A thing. I think for horror it works. Maybe not so much for adventure games. I don't know. Maybe it could.
Yeah, I've seen games where you play yourself and they like throw you into a fantasy setting or something like that, which always feels a little weird because you're immediately like, okay, well, how does this translate to the actual skills of this game that we're playing? But with a horror game, when you're playing yourself, you're invested.
It's also about disempowerment, and
right.
If you're in a fantasy setting, then you have to figure out how all your skills translate into a fantasy world. But in a horror game, how all your skills translate into not dying is a lot more easy to work.
Yeah.
Right.
And the whole point of my game was it wasn't supposed to be fantasy.
Right.
Right? You were supposed to be
real.
weak, a fragile human being.
Oh, yeah.
With all the limitations of that.
Unless you had a can of peaches.
This can of peaches got to work out.
Yeah.
MVP.
But I think
most valuable peach.
The most valuable peach. But I mean that is maintaining that realism in the game, right? Is sure. I think the less fantasy like it is, the more scary it is, because you can actually relate to it. Even if you are playing a character, you can relate to the world around you and how it would function, and the fact that you are a squishy human who could just chop off your fingers or get glass shoved through your feet or whatever. And so that keeping that realism in there, I think, really does.
Yeah, and again, that's of course if you want that type of horror game. Obviously, that's not what it has to be, but
right.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't played a lot of like Call of Cthulhu type stuff where it's insanity is the risk. Like that's what your perception of reality is what's at risk. Most of the horror games I've played were either like your Dread game, which was body horror. A lot of like you're gonna lose limbs or like have glass go through your feet kind of stuff, or that like isolationist horror where like 10 Candles, where it's you are alone and everything's coming for you and how do you survive kind of stuff.
Well, was it with the insanity horror? Was it I think it might have been Stu from Happy Jacks who was saying like when they were doing their Call of Cthulhu game, he would write a note to somebody and pass it to him, and he would put on there like what their perception is of the situation based on their level of insanity. So he would pass them a note, and it's like, hey, you notice your buddy over here, has weird tentacles growing out of his face now. Guy didn't really have him like tentacles or nothing, but it's like you're going insane. This is what you see. This is like what's presented to you. So how do you react to this?
Yeah,
Right.
And you temper your RP based on your perspective, not the perspective of the whole game as it's playing out on the table.
Yeah, and the fun thing is if you do it well, and you start giving that situation thoroughly, and everyone gets their little bit. People start to wonder if what the information you're passing is they're insane or they're the only one who isn't.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That paranoia too of what do other people know that I don't know? And several people have said it in different variations of ways of talking about paranoia in chat. But yeah, creating that paranoia amongst the players of like, is somebody at this table in on what's going on? Or are they out to get me? Are they, setting that paranoia where you can't even trust your friends, I think really helps add to it. And passing notes like that, where it's just little things. I've played in a couple of games where like players have passed notes to the GM and the note said like, I'm just passing you a note to freak everyone out. And it works. It works where the other players are going, what the fuck is he telling the GM? Like, what is he trying to do to us? Like, is he trying to steal my shit? Or, it may not have been scary, but it definitely created paranoia in me.
I think that was Lokio, right, at a Bedlam Hall game.
Yeah.
'Cause he's told that story before. He passed. This was Dave Kazay running it. He passed him a note that
I was
just
in
said,
that game.
"Look concerned," and then that was it. Like that's all he's passed to the GM. And so he opens it, he reads it, he looks concerned, he closes it, he reads it again. He goes, "Are you sure?" And he goes, and like Lokio's like, and Dave Kazay goes, "Okay, 10." And like periodically would count down.
He just started counting down throughout the game. And like we're sitting there the whole time. The rest of us going, what the fuck is going on? And then we're all trying to figure out what his secret is because that's part of the whole Bedlam Hall thing. And the paranoia in that game, it may not have been like scary, but there was definitely a lot of paranoia. And come to find out at the end of the game, which I think I ended up killing Lokio. Not too far from the end of the game, but anyway, I know, surprise. We asked Dave Kazay about it, and that's when he was like, "Oh no, I was just started counting down to add to the paranoia of what was like." Yeah, and they told us everything that was happening, but yeah.
I think that's a good point, though. That if one of your players in a horror setting decides to turn it up and their investment level goes for 11,
yeah,
go to 12.
Yeah,
right. Yeah, double down, man.
Yeah.
If your table can handle it, go for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've actually played a lot of horror games that where the GM is not doesn't have as big of a role as your typical like D&D type game. And so a lot of times like it's that yes and, right? Like someone adds to it and then you just tack on, this is how it's even more fucked up than you thought, and you just keep tacking it on and escalating stuff.
Yeah. So we kind of repeated ourselves a bit here on our doc, so I'm just going to skip down to like
I think there is one thing in here that is relevant though, the honest comedy in fiction.
Yeah.
Right there.
So I was listening to Backstory recently, and they had on oh man, I forgot her name.
Not important. Move on.
Sarah 12s. Anyways, or something 12s. She wrote a Improv for Gamers book, and she was talking about how when humans feel tense or there's a lot of tension, we laugh to break that tension, which is of course why people make jokes in horror games, because you're building the tension, but you're not there's no give and take, there's no rise and fall. So if you're just piling on the tension constantly over and over and over again, and there's no release, then that's what drives players out of character to make jokes, because they need to release that tension somehow. Yeah. It's why, like, something in a horror movie, like one little funny thing will happen. It's not the best joke in the world, but the whole theater laughs, right? Because it's finally, like, we can release this tension. The
best thing to do is have a jump scare right after you laugh. Because you take everybody kind of out of their, like, oh, yeah, this isn't scary as it's been. And then, like, oh, my God.
And we're right back in. Oh.
Wow, knock the hat off even.
Oh, my God. There goes the hat.
I hit the brim on the back of my head.
So an example of this is I was playing 10 Candles. This was Tomes' game, and there was a point which a bunch of fucked up shit happened in front of my character, and another character walked into the room, and I'm standing over like several dead bodies, and it was like that Tucker and Dale situation where I just told him what happened. Like, I just, in character, just said, oh, well, so this happened, and then this guy started killing himself, and I tried to stop him, and then this dude was doing this thing, and then he shot himself in the face, and I just laid it all out, and everyone at the table just started laughing, because, like, this tension got so high, and something slightly funny finally happened, and everyone was like, oh, thank God, like, and everyone laughed. And so having that comedy in the fiction, and not like forcing it, but having like something silly or something sort of funny happen that would naturally have happened, can let them laugh and have that break of tension be in character, so it doesn't draw everyone out because they made a dick joke or whatever, right?
Yeah.
No, that's when you kill one of them for breaking the tension.
Right?
How dare you?
Well, and I think that brings us into our next piece here, which is playing to your players' psychological weaknesses. And I think this really helps when you know your players, and it's not like randos that you're playing at a con, unless they're just general fears like spiders that, can freak out a lot of people. But we've talked about it before, but creepy children scare me very easily. Even in a game that probably isn't meant to be scary, you put in a creepy child, I'm freaked the fuck out. That's how that works. I can't watch Omens. That is not, freaks me out. So yeah, putting in a little creepy kid who's like, mommy's eyes made me sick. Blah, or the exploding teddy bear that I was trying to help the little girl and they exploded and tried to kill me. Playing to those weak. Kurt has things that we won't push on, but he has certain things that will trigger him. And if you do them to him, then I think one of the greatest things when we were playing End of Lion's Dread game was Kurt has an issue with being locked into places, and we were locked in this room.
It's like reverse claustrophobia.
It's like reverse claustrophobia, except that we were inside a house, but it wasn't your house, so you were upset you couldn't get out, and the key to get out the front door was on the other side of the room through these like razor sharp spider webs of whatever, and you couldn't get to it without like cutting yourself up. And so that you can see your way out, but you can't get to it. That was so triggering for you, and so much fun to watch you get like frustrated by and upset by, and it elicited those real emotions of fear and anger, which was great.
And at this point, I think it's important to mention safety tools if you're gonna lean on people's triggers or people's like real life psychological issues. you need to check with them. And there needs to be a way for them to cut bait, right? There needs to be a way for them to bail if they didn't, like, oh, I didn't realize this was going to be like this. I can't. Like, that's not going to happen. And so I think that's why you want discussions like Lines and Veils. Like, what is something you do not want in this game so we don't do it, right? And it might be something where if it's a group that trusts everyone and it's a horror game and you say, hey, we're going to go real dark here, is everyone okay with that? Obviously, like,
Kurt would sit there and he would say, you can cut off my fingers and you can chop off a leg, and I mean, you can torture me, but if you lock me out of my own house, I am going to lose my fucking mind.
But that's the thing. Like, I may be fine with exploring that in this game, right? I'm prepped and ready for that to be a possibility in this game because I know that we want to get tense and we want it to be scary and like we're going to get triggered, right? And I'm okay with it. And so I may not cut, like I may say like, that's fine. I think I can handle it. We're going to do it. But then you want something like an X card, right? Like if it gets too much and you need a way to stop what's happening, like have that discussion before the game starts. If anything gets out of hand, this is how you push pause on the game. And we discuss like what just happened or even like just skip to the next scene, like whatever it is. Have a talk about those safety tools when you know that you're going to be pushing on people's fears.
I'm gonna knock over your Jenga tower. Go get a cookie. That's how you know you went too far.
That's it. I'm out.
Yep, that's a clear X card in that game. Just knock the Jenga tower over.
Yeah, but I think definitely having that discussion and as a GM understanding that even though you're trying to scare your players, there are lines to scaring people and then just being awful and inappropriate for no reason. And so I think it's kind of balancing that, right? Like what's actually scary and what's just makes people uncomfortable, right?
Yeah.
So like I think sexual violence is one that we talk about a lot when we like what are some of the things we don't want to see in this game, sexual violence. Don't put that in a game. Like that's going to be a consistent thing. Nobody wants to see that. Nobody wants to play that, right? Well, that's not scary. That's just sad.
It might, and I mean that's one of my lines, like, or that's one of my. I don't want sexual violence in my games, but that may not be for your table. Like if your table is okay with exploring those themes, like cool, but have that discussion and know ahead of time. Like
that's the only reason I've never been able to play a Reaping Mauler in any of your games.
I don't know what that is.
It's probably.
I probably don't want to know what that is.
Probably.
You don't. It's horrible. It's a bad class. It's fine.
So the next one we have here is fearing something that scared you is not the same as feeling anxiety at the possibility of defeat or even death.
So who put this in here?
I think I did.
I read this as like bleed, like the character, like the player being scared, like literally scared, versus there's tension because if I fail this roll, my character may die. Is that what that means?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. I think that comes with like the paranoia or building up the tension. You don't necessarily have to have the fear of I'm gonna die to be scared, right?
Right. And I think in a lot of games, most of the games that we've talked about, Dread and 10 Candles, they're tension generators. Those games are they're just there to build tension. It's baked into the mechanics how to build that tension. And so when you're looking at a horror game, tension is probably your goal, right?
Yeah.
Because actually scaring someone is not only difficult, but usually a little fucked up. Like, it's like if it's on purpose and you're like, we're gonna scare the shit out of Jenny tonight, like that's especially if you didn't have that safety talk, but tension is probably your bread and butter. I don't know, how do you guys feel about that?
No, I completely agree.
Yeah, I mean it's possible to be afraid of things where the outcome is not death.
Yeah.
So
yeah, absolutely.
I disagree. You should always go into every game with a plan of dumping a bag of spiders on somebody and hoping for the best response.
All the minis in tonight's games are Black Widows. Take that.
Yeah, but the thing is, we play RPGs to get away from real life.
Yeah. Especially if you live near like fields and stuff.
Yeah. Tomes was saying is something that a lot of people forget about 10 Candles is that part of the guys, or that part of the genius of the player authority in the beginning of the game is that they are controlling the narrative and showing what's happening, and therefore they don't want that to happen, and the GM then later gets control and can make the things that the players didn't want to happen. So
Right.
So yeah, definitely having that, letting your players kind of guide, like, oh, this is the thing I don't want to happen, and then eventually making that happen, or let that be the thing that is that they're fighting against, letting them figure out their own thing that they're scared of, adds to that tension too.
A lot of the like advice I had seen in the past about building tension before I found 10 Candles was, keep the pressure up, make sure they're constant, make sure what's your decision, how, like, try to push them. 10 Candles does the exact opposite thing. Because you are slowly losing the probability to gain narrative control, you can literally let them have anything they want. If you're GMing a 10 Candles game, just give them everything they want, because eventually the dice will fuck them, and then they pay. Like, that's when you get them, right? You don't have to try to keep the tension up, because the dice will get you.
One of the things that was most scary for me in that game was the thought of the train stopping. Not dying, not going into the dark, not, whatever. The train stopping. Because whatever was on the train with us was like, okay, there was like a creature on the train. It's a creature. I'm just going to stay on this end of the train. It'll stay on that end of the train. I'm not going over there. I'll be fine. But if the train stopped, if the world that went into darkness is covered in these things, then that would overwhelm us, right? And then it would be over. And
your completely irrational fear is what forced us to leave a perfectly safe and happy establishment that was well defended.
Right. Like, we were in a building with the train had stopped at like a depot, and there was a stronghold of people there, and we were like, cool, we're going to go inside. And the paranoia of we're not moving, we have to keep moving, we got to get on this train, made us leave the safe harbor that we were at and keep going on this train. And that was the thing that freaked me out, was sitting still.
Well, for me in 10 Candles, the thing that freaked me out was just right up at the beginning during the narrative, when it was like, and then everything went dark and all the lights went out and there was no stars, there was nothing. Like, to me, that is because your entire life, it's there. There's a sky, there's stars, there's light. And then if all that stuff goes away, it's like, what the hell? Like, immediately, like, what's going on with your world? Like, this is completely different. It's just like a fundamental thing, like a fundamental truth that's always been there is now not there anymore. And it's like right at the beginning, that's what got me. So it's like, it wasn't the train, it wasn't stopping, it had nothing to do with the train or the monsters. To me, it was like, what's happening out there? And that's what kind of spooked me about the whole thing, just right off the bat, before the game even started. It was like the lights went out. I was like, oh shit, what, why?
I think it's fictive fun. Is that how you say that? Anyway, it said, when I was saying about being irrational and getting back on the train, he was saying, like, running back upstairs instead of out the front door.
Right.
It's that same, making poor decisions, but my brain's telling me this is the thing that would make me safe, even though it's not, the right direction. Yeah. But yeah, definitely. I think that building that tension is the biggest part of scaring the shit out of people.
Yeah. And giving the characters enough free reign that they can sort of show you what they are afraid to lose, right? Because their actions will show you. Even if it's not 10 Candles, if you're playing a more traditional game, that if you know what the characters are scared to lose, putting the loss of that thing on the table, suddenly there's tension, right? And so giving them the freedom to say in character what they're scared of by their actions, like, basically just let them mess around until things get scary.
I think the fear of losing something you care about can be scary in a game. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a horror game, but personal scaring yourself, right? Like, you've decided you care about something in a game, and we've talked about Bleed a couple weeks ago, and then the thought of losing that thing. I mean, I legitimately get really upset when my dire tiger gets hurt in our regular game. Like really upset. Like I'm so much so that you guys make fun of me when you're like, "Oh no, Stormageddon fell down." I'm like, "What? What happened to Stormageddon?" Like, so I have the thing that I'm afraid to lose. So much so that we've written it in as a hindrance that I take a -2 to everything when Stormy gets hurt, right? Like that's a fear my character has, is that something bad will happen to him. And so when we're in a room full of zombies and he gets attacked, I'm scared. I'm really scared for my dire tiger that something bad's going to happen to him. So building in things that your characters could lose that, like we said, aren't necessarily their own death can be scary.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah, my
awesome.
character is scared of what you would do to protect Stormageddon. So I have to protect Stormageddon by proxy.
By proxy.
Yeah.
Your oath to protect me, and I have to protect him, so.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, do you guys have any more thoughts on horror games or?
Well,
building
I wanted to add here, like we had a note at the bottom of games that build tension, and we discussed 10 Candles, we discussed Dread, and a key thing to note between both these systems, there's no combat mechanics. And the disempowerment of the I go and punch the monster. Oh, okay, the rules are the exact same or non-existent. Creates that tension, but in the same note, any system really can do it if you create situations where the abilities or skills or magic of your players don't work for some reason. You have the big bad who, they go and attack and all of a sudden he heals from all their wounds instantly, or none of their spells are working and he's just stalking them and making their lives miserable. Like that can work too in the right situation.
Yeah.
Like
you could be running a regular game that you normally run and then have one session that's scary because you built some tension into that one session, even if the whole campaign isn't necessarily focused around fear.
Yeah, Blake, the Ravenloft was a great example of this. D&D, but the rules don't apply. Everything's weird and dark. Most holy magic doesn't work at all. And all the fun things that come out of that. But even like a game like Shadowrun, where it is basically superheroes with guns.
The arcology was pretty
yeah.
close to being a horror game. I mean,
I definitely felt horror-y.
And that was, I leaned into those tropes and created the situation where you are in a situation where there is no help coming. There is unfathomable odds against you. And the only thing that is keeping you alive is not getting caught.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and making that clear, that can be difficult in a like a D&D style game, that you're meant to run away, and running away is the success. That's the good thing. Like if you get away, you did well. Because most D&D games, you run in and kill the thing until it drops its loot, and then you move on. And so if you're running a game like that and you want to add horror elements, making sure that it's like, show them ahead of time, like this thing is not affected by your abilities, and then find some way to present a clear objective that, like, if you could just do this, everything would be okay. Right? Like, generate that information so that they have that carrot, that, because I mean, horror doesn't work if you don't have hope. If you're resigned to your fate, like I've run, I used to run 4th edition, and I've seen combats where everyone just went, oh, okay, we're meant to get captured, stab me, I guess. Like, that's not horror. And so resignation is not horror. Like, failing to achieve the thing that drives your hope is where horror comes in.
But yeah, as you described, in like doing in a standard D&D game, all of a sudden, like as a group of 1st or 2nd level characters, here's a level 10 monster who's going to wipe the floor with you. Your goal is to live,
right?
Get away. Then you also have the fun of, in 10 levels coming back and having them kill their worst fear,
right,
and stabbing him in the face.
Right. Tomes is recommending a 2-player game called Dead Friend by Lucien Kahn. You play with ceremonies, and you do things like trace pentagrams and hum things and whisper things. And when someone needs to think about how to respond to a story prompt, you sit in silence, and it's super creepy. So you each play the role of a friend, one living and one dead, and you ask each other questions to develop the characters, their community, their history, and their motivations and stuff. And he says it's super creepy because one person plays as the dead friend and you play as the friend. And
yeah, running around in the darkness, doing rituals and hunting down clues.
Yeah, that was
sounds
we
familiar.
might have some experience with that.
That was a different kind of scary though. That wasn't scary because we were doing rituals. It was kind of scary because there's bears.
Okay, I have got to give it to End of Line though. He scared the living shit out of me at the very first con, our home brew Cayucas con, because he had planted shit around the place we were staying, and he had a phone with a timer on it, and when the alarm went off, there was like a chainsaw sound
or something.
And so like the previous hint had said like go in the downstairs bathroom and like with the door shut chant this whatever. And so me and another person, like it said we had to do, like specifically us had to do this. So we go in the room, we close it, we're standing in the dark in front of a mirror, which was already creepy as fuck, and we're saying this chant, and then like in the middle of us chanting, this alarm goes off with this chainsaw sound, and we both screamed. And it was me and the other girl on the trip, and all the guys were outside going, "What just happened?" We were screaming in the bathroom. So it was very well timed.
I
Jump
completely
scare.
forgot about that game.
Yeah.
That scared the shit out of me.
If you can pull it off, planting some jump scares, like solid.
Yeah.
Or just stay in a house with field mice, and when they run down the pole in the middle of your 10 candles game, free jump scare.
Yeah.
Yep.
That was so great. I
Yeah.
Totally planned.
could not have done that.
Yeah, that was awesome. You guys didn't know it, but Kurt had planted some cheese in my pocket, and
I planted a little cheese by the thing so that the mice would run. And
oh my
it was the
god.
best.
Well, awesome. Does anybody have any final thoughts as we're hitting our hour mark here on spoopy games and creepiness?
We need more of them.
Um,
More spooky games.
Spoopy games. I'm going to attempt to run a spooky game next Saturday morning.
At 9 in the morning.
At
So
9
we're already
a.m.
starting off
Yep.
completely ignoring a lot of our own advice.
Super
Yeah, ignore
ignoring
all
a
the
lot of our
advice
recommendations
just said.
here. But I'm currently writing a game for next weekend that hopefully will be spoopy in nature. I will probably fail miserably, but we will see what happens.
I will be at Big Bad Con, so I can't wait to watch the recording.
The good thing though is because you're not playing in it, you can help me write it,
Yes, I can.
which is not a thing we normally get to do because we're usually playing everything that we each other runs. So there you go.
Yeah, we should do it. We should do an episode on not being able to talk to your partner about your game because they play in it.
Yeah, that's a rough one in this house. It is very weird not being able to use your sounding board of friends to bounce your ideas off of when they're going to partake in the thing that you're writing. So you can't like go, "Hey guys, what do you think about this idea?" But yeah, that's definitely a future topic. So, well,
But
great.
you do get the advantage of an inherent plant if you ever want to use one.
Which we have done a bit once in a while, where we've like, "Hey, I'm going to feed you this piece of information. Make it seem scary or surprising or
When
you
this
know."
happens, do X.
Yeah, when I say these words, I want you to have this kind of reaction. Cool. Yeah, so the plant does work in games sometimes. So, well, cool guys. Thanks so much for tuning in with us tonight while we talked about spooky horror games and how to make them spoopy. Hey Kurt,
What?
where can people find us?
Hey, well, if people wanted to find us, they could go to pixelscandal.com and find out all sorts of information about us.
That's a great place to go, guys. You should go check it out.
You could go check that out. You could also contact us. We have a contact us form on pixelscandal.com, but if you don't like those for some reason, you could just email us, pixelscandal@gmail.com.
Yeah.
You can also, if you want to watch us live, you can watch us on twitch.tv/pixelscandal, where if you want to support the show, you can subscribe to that channel or give us bits or whatever. I don't know. Also, you can follow us on social media. You can follow us Twitter @PixelScandal and Instagram @PixelScandal and Facebook, pixelscandal.com.
Sure.
You can search Facebook on or search Facebook for Pixel Scandal. And if you want to listen to this as an audio show, the Nerdcast is produced as an audio show as well. You can find us in iTunes or Apple Podcasts or Google Play or any of that, any podcatcher of your choice.
All those jams.
Yeah.
Well, cool.
Are we on Spotify or something?
We are on Spotify.
We are
You
also
can-
on
you can
Spotify.
listen to
Or
Spotify
something.
as well.
Or something.
And or.
And
Yeah.
something.
Yes, and.
So like Andeline said at the top of the show, we will be playing Dead by Daylight. That's
Tomorrow at 4.
Tomorrow at 4 p.m.
We'll be murdering each other.
Yep. And next Saturday morning, 9 a.m., Spoopy Game ran by yours truly, followed by our podcast, which our episode is going to be on horror movies next weekend. So tune in and we will be talking about more spooky things because it's October and that's kind of the going theme for the whole month. But
Yeah,
next
and we
week we'll be
checked, and the
talking horror
podcast is coming from inside your house.
For anyone out there that is even a little bit excited to see the new Halloween movie, check your local theaters because a lot of them are doing shows of the original movie.
Oh.
So if you've never seen it on the big screen, you may have an opportunity to see if any of your local theaters are showing it.
I have not.
Tomorrow at 2
we're
p.m.
gonna
they're
go watch
showing
it
it
in
here.
Andeline, so we're going to go watch it at your house.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, awesome. Thanks, guys, for hanging out with us tonight, and we'll see you next time.
All right. Thanks
Thanks,
everybody.
everybody.
Farewell.
Bye.
Bye.
I love you.
No, he doesn't.